so much for having me on. Thank you to all distinguished guests. So yeah, since you had some excellent representatives, what I would like to do is actually point out a few very interesting facts and details about the specific situation in Israel. And again, my main motivation here now with you is to share information which hopefully can be taken somewhere else, gain some insight or inspiration to other countries. Israel is, as we know in this issue, is a special case from the get-go. Israel was designated, probably you could call it an experiment state. Basically, our government sold our people out to be the lab rats of the world when it comes to the mRNA platform and so-called injections, so-called vaccines. They're not vaccines, but they put our lives as lab rats for the rest of the world, like probably 3 or 4 months before the the global phase, the rolling out in other countries. Just to make a small point, this can also be used for analysis, just like Masako here just gave us the Japan example. Also, the Israeli, when you see peaks and troughs when it comes to sudden deaths and any kind of serious adverse events pile up, if you see it, you can use Israel as a kind of control group or comparison group because of this shift change, because Israel got the rollout of the vaccine, as I said, something like 3 months. Forgive me if I don't get the exact date wrong. Right, but so there's a few specific things I would like to point out. First of all, Israel is in a very special situation in that regard. I work I kind of volunteer in a group that's called israelexitwho.org. You've seen some of the representatives. There are many groups in Israel working to get Israel out of the WHO. And again, I'd like to point some different reasons why that is. So Israeli society is generally speaking very pro-family and pro-life. The number of children, the mean number of children is relatively high.
ついに公開、ロスチャイルドを支配する黒幕とは。
It's not as bad as other places in the world. It comes from Israel being an amalgam of different communities and religions and peoples, but overall, I would say very traditional, slightly conservative attitudes towards family values, children, bringing up children, and the value that they bring to our existing society. So we value that very much. Some of the groups that are fighting to get Israel out of the WHO realize that the WHO, through what used to be sex ed, sexual education, which should be a good thing, turned out to be like a sexuality education, basically a grand scheme. We won't discuss it too deeply here, but disconnecting the child from very early age, from being a baby, disconnecting from the family framework, and indoctrinating towards sexual behaviors that our society does not seem normal, and I think any reasonable person would say the same. So you have these groups. Israel is also, we know that if we look at the larger picture, we're in a security situation. We're currently still ongoing war in 7 different fronts. There's still hot borders in Syria, in Lebanon, wherever you look. It's not just the Gaza situation, which you're probably all aware of, and daily attacks from the Houthis in Yemen, and obviously Iran. So within all that, you can imagine that Israeli parliament would not be very available to talk about anything else other than security. But we kind of find ways to actually exploit that. Part of the WHO power grab goes through sovereignty issues. We probably discussed it before. It's not related directly to health, but if some global group in Geneva, which actually has an abundance of influence by parties which Israel would not feel very safe in their hands, if that group is able to exert power within Israel, do surveillance, be it pathogen surveillance or other kinds of surveillance. And this is a big problem. And Israeli people understand it, regardless of political, tendencies. It doesn't matter if you're left or right, if you're secular or religious, if you're this or that. At the end of the day, you realize that matters of health in Israel cannot be left for WHO in Geneva, to say the least. Now, a few problems because the Israeli Ministry of Health is very deeply entrenched within the Geneva WHO deal, because it's a revolving door. It's always nice to have a position in Geneva, go to 5-star hotels, cocktail parties, whatever, on the roof, whatever they do. It's like a thing. It's like a teat they're reluctant to let go of. However, we since the beginning of the escalation on the 7th of October, we realized that all the different ways we tried to talk to Ministry of Health and through regular politics would not have ears available. We changed tactics. Jonathan and Heidi, you've met them. I won't expand. There are many people working very hard. We are making ground. I have to say that the health committee inside the parliament is for many years now held in the hands of a party which is absolutely globalist oriented. It's very difficult to break through there, but we did manage to do so through other members of Knesset. So the parliamentary system in Israel, 120 members of Knesset. And ruling party creates a coalition, more than 50%, hopefully more than 61 seats. Currently, it's around 63, 64 seats. Of the coalition, we managed to get support from 20 of about 60 odd members of Knesset to get their signatures, to get serious discussions on the go, on the road to exiting the WHO. The WHO, with that title in mind, within the framework of the health committee of the member of the Knesset, of the Parliament of Israel. So there were a few sessions already. The last one was pretty amazing. You probably talked about the one where Reggie visited. I got to speak there too, my colleagues. It was a profound event, which I have to say, to give you an insider's peek, basically, you could very easily see on the faces of all the opposing side, the Ministry of Health and their so-called experts and some doctors, you could see they're trembling. They're nothing less than trembling. They know. They have this, they have this, they saw, I believe they saw the way it's going, and I don't like to paraphrase, but they were very pressed to try and fend this off. They were not successful. We know that our crowd sometimes has a tendency to get over emotional, overexcited, go on tangents which are not very productive. And inside, inside the parliament, when you have this chance, it's something you should be respectful of and clever about. And even though there were some shouts from here and there during that session, it was an amazing show of power. I came very optimistic outside of that meeting there. It was all broadcast online by, formal Knesset Parliament TV channel. It's all there to still be seen.
安倍さんに対する最大の侮辱じゃないですか。
あれね。
I would say that there are few things that interest Israelis very much. I talked about the sex ed family thing, very, very important, especially for gaining people's trust and support from members of Knesset. Obviously, the vax injuries, but the vax injuries you have to again, and I agree again with Masako here, that it's a sensitive matter. And with previous people who talked on this show, it's a sensitive matter because we come with these vax injury claims, which are obvious to us. We come to the government and to the health ministry and to doctors, and they're on the bad. They caused all this, so it's very hard for them to admit being wrong. So we have to find ways. I would say that at least two more things shortly. First of all, Israeli public trust has gone way down, especially on this issue of health. And from the last few years, so many injured, so many dead, so many families torn apart, as if we didn't, as if we needed another, front to fight, except for the current 7. We have this issue, which is hitting the whole world. You all know it just like me. So public trust has gone way down, and obviously for a very good reason. Also findings that, for example, serious adverse events that Israeli health systems are very well documented. Everything is on computer file, transferable. So following up adverse events should have been a very, very easy job. Unfortunately, we found out, and it was revealed, that one of the bodies that received millions of serious adverse events, millions of them. And you can imagine, just like in your countries, it's very hard to make these registrations of SAEs, of serious adverse events, yet still they were received millions. However, and the whole Israeli society population, is around 9 million. 9 million, that's all. I mean, we're a very small country, so let's round it up to 10 million. At least 384,000 of these serious adverse events, which were registered for different events, were evaporated and vanished, and no one knows what happened to them. Now, obviously, this was by design. We're not stupid. I mean, how stupid do you think we would be? And people realize that. In a current poll, I think last week I saw that Israeli public trust in the health systems and government in relation to health is under 18%, 18%. So probably more than 4 in 5 people have enough brains to work it out. And we try to bring them enough information, not just about vax injuries, which are obviously one of the biggest issues, but also about Israeli sovereignty and actually every other problem that currently interests Israelis very much, but should be of interest to everyone. We know this is a big issue, not just of health. I mean, WHO has got the word health within it, but it's not about health. It's about power, it's about money, it's about many, many different things, but also indoctrination at levels that the world has never, ever seen. For example, One Health, we won't go deeply into One Health, but for One Health, if you read it at one way, it's a very positive view of inclusive health attitudes. On the other hand, it's an absolutely megalomanic, total control, globalist nightmare. But also, in ways, it could be looked at as if it's a new religion they're working for. I won't even go into that, but happily, we have many people who are beginning to understand the one key for anyone in the world to understand how to move ahead, move forward, is the first thing you need to do is understand that everything they say has got double meaning. It's double speak. Every word, every title, every chapter in every book, and every paragraph basically has an open front meaning, typically very peaceful, nice, with a lot of niceties and very positive words. And the real meaning, when you crunch it down and you connect the dots with different items in the treaty or in the international health regulation updates, etc., you begin to see that this is a monster. It's like a Babylon tower. But one last positive to say before I shut down and hand the mic is to say that we remember the end of the Babylon Tower, where this megalomanic structure.
クイズ。アメリカが5000億ドルを投じて進めているある新規事業とは何？それは中国と世界覇権を競り合うために力を入れている軍事では。
Because at some stage this architecture cannot hold itself and it will crumble with a small push. And we are like the little mice, nibbling at the base. We nibble, nibble, nibble. That's what we do. I'm a small mice. I have a family of mice and good friends, which are mice, which nibble. And I'm happy to see you guys, friendly mice from other places in the world. Thank you for having me today. Cheers.
Thank you so much. There's going to be memes made about that, I can assure you. Mark, let me go to you now, and then we'll let my good friends Xylee and Dustin close out this presentation. You've been reporting on this for the UK column, but you're in the United States. You've been one of the few people who has been doing everything possible to get it right, and I really appreciate that. So give us your insight into your view, both from the United States and the fact that you deal a lot with folks from the UK.
Yeah, I have a lot to thank you for that in that way, Jim. You've been such a steady eye for such a long time on the WHO's machinations, and you've really had some breakthrough information that has enabled journalists like myself to be more accurate and look at it in different ways. You had found out about that annex within the treaty, even though they're making it sound as if the treaty is more or less a done deal. They actually can't sign the thing, sign, seal, delivered until the better part of a year from now. And so I'm going to be writing a very major article, or at least a couple of them, over that period of time. And one of the things I want to do is I want to call some of the journalistic trade organizations like the Society for Professional Journalists and IRE, which is Independent Reporters and Editors, and ask them what, pray tell, is going on with journalism where they are literally spokesmen for Big Pharma. I mean, this is just outrageous that they have, there's a basic distrust of corporate power that's sort of inbred in a journalist, right? The Aaron Brockovich story, all the, we grew up with the China syndrome. We watched Jack Lemmon and the China syndrome. And, distrusting government power, distrusting corporate power were more or less synonymous. And so what is it with this? Corporate power is still something to be a little wary of, but when it comes to Big Pharma, they're pure as the driven snow. Everything they say is in the interest of your health and well-being. And suddenly the whole journalistic enterprise just falls on its face. It's incredible. And it's difficult for me to believe that that's purely advertising driven. I know that that's a lot of it here in South Texas. It was amazing to watch during the COVIDocracy. That's what I call the bureaucracy that came with COVID. I called it the COVIDocracy. As that was coming up in 2020, there's a local Fox News affiliate here that not only was biased in favor of Big Pharma, but they actually held on their news grounds, on their property, a vaccination clinic where people drove up and got vaccinated without even getting out of their cars. And I said to the news gal, who was all of 19 years old, maybe, I don't know what experience she had other than reading teleprompters, but I said to her, you just can't do this as a journalist. You can't be not only biased, but actually participating in giving vaccinations. I said, you've got to stop this. And I called her boss the next day and chewed her out pretty bad. And I did notice a little bit of a change in the tone there afterwards. That's going back a few years. But that's how bad it got here in South Texas, to where journalistic organizations were actually providing the facilities and the publicity for people, the elderly, the young, you name it, to come and get the new experimental emergency rush to market COVID jab. Absolutely outrageous. A complete surrender of the journalistic code. Absolutely contrary to everything journalists are supposed to be about, as I'm sure Masako would agree. And so I'm really keen on not only talking to individual journalists like I did back then and their bosses, but more the journalistic organizations like I mentioned, SPJ and IRE, and trying maybe even call the journalism schools. And some of this I've done in a preliminary sense to find out, what is it with Big Pharma where you just can't give us a more square view of reality, you know, even starting from the most basic, that any vaccine is kind of an act of faith. You know, you're putting this in your body with the hopes that it may prevent some disease in a later time. But you can also do that with zinc, vitamin C, stable garlic, olive leaf extract. There's all sorts of supplements that we know will build human immunity in general.
今からご覧いただく動画はメモリーパレスという記憶術です。
Not like there's not alternatives in terms of building your immunity. And then vaccines themselves, if you go back, not just COVID, of course, but look at the whole vaccine history, it's riddled with questions, right? There's a lot of things we don't know. And there's a lot of things that may or may not work as well as we were told. And so the very nature of vaccines invites skepticism. It should invite skepticism, but we're not seeing that from the so-called mainstream legacy media cartel, as I call them. I refer to it as a media cartel because they seem to be separate competing entities, but yet overall, with only minor exceptions, the narrative is all the same. It's like a fixed narrative. So that suggests a kind of collaborative environment where they all uphold this politically correct, protect the state's associations with Big Pharma, and, you know, circle the wagons, as it were, and don't let the peasants get too much of a leg up on what's going on. You know, so we're really up against a big behemoth, and I would just like to see if someone besides the alternative media, because the legacy media still has, you know, they're getting into more televisions, they still have their newspapers in more locations, you know, they still have kind of a dominant presence. You know, find out if they can be brought to bear a little bit and to tell a more honest view of vaccinations in general and mRNA injections in particular. So this is sort of my mission. I'm sort of on the first phase of it, among other things that have nothing to do with it. I can't focus all on that. I wish I could in a way, but I'm just glad that James found out about the annex and has kept an eye on the deadlines and the procedures, so we know that we have some time to work with and we won't fall for any siren song. Hey, we've got this all sewn up. I'm Tedros. You know, you don't have anything to worry about. But that's more or less where I'm at. Those are some of the things I've seen and done. And I want to make sure I stay within a certain time frame so everyone can get a chance to talk.
Well, Mark, thank you very much. It's been a joy working with you over these past couple of years. I look forward to your work off in the future.
Yes.
And saved my good friends, Dustin and Xylee, for last here. You guys have given your life over the last 3 years. I know that because we're on the phone all the time. You are just doing work that needs to be appreciated. I want to tell everybody, go to interestofjustice.org and do everything you can to support what these folks are doing. The last 15 minutes of this presentation are yours.
All right. We're going to get him, James. We're going to get him.
We're going to do it. So thank you so much, everybody. Everyone has their spaces in this time and place, and everybody's doing an amazing job from what I hear that's here today. So thank you, everybody, for holding your space and doing what needs to be done and able to do that. Here at Interest of Justice, we've been dedicating a lot of time and a lot of effort into exposing a lot of the WHO's nonsense and getting people involved, trying to get everybody involved, making awareness so that they have something that they can do and not just, say, hey, what do we do about this? There are things that we can do about this. So we've taken it upon ourselves to create petitions or demands. I like to call them demands. We have a website, noticeanddemand.org. Right now we have one going against the World Health Organization, noticeanddemand.org/petition/exit WHO. You can go there, sign it, and participate. It's going to be used legally for legal purposes in a lot of our Sue the WHO campaigns that we're doing. So that's really amazing. It's a legal jargon. You can read it. It's excellent, and we think that we can do something about this collectively. So not just as ourselves, but as a whole. So and that's what it's going to take, is all of us collectively. And we understand the World Health Organization is just a big pharma platform. By listening to everybody today, where a lot of people are speaking about the vaccinations, COVID-19 vaccinations, and the fraudulent, almost the fraud that has been going on. And it really stems from the World Health Organization and many other platforms that are involved. So we are campaigning, and we're going to take word from Robert Kennedy Jr., who was saying to exit the WHO and hold them accountable. And we agree, they need to be held accountable. And that's what we've been doing and as a collective effort here, getting all of the legal information that we can, collecting signatures from around the world, getting all of the data that we can, all of the evidence that we can to sue the WHO and hold them accountable. It's so important that we do this because, in my opinion, they're violating Just Kogan's norms. And Just Kogan's is kind of like, it's a standard of law in the international realm, where the international organizations such as the World Health Organization and the United Nations and other organizations similar have to go by, and they are breaking their own procedures. They're breaking their own rules. We know that the World Health Organization has violated IHR 55.2, in which the director, DG Tedros, did not specifically give enough time for the member states to make decisions appropriately, procedurally, and have due process to make proper decisions. So we know a lot of illegal things that have happened through the World Health Organization, where they're violating their own procedures, they're violating their own rules and international law. There's a really incredible thing that they're doing on experimentation on people. And my partner Xylee here has amazing knowledge on how the World Health Organization and the regulatory agencies are implementing their law to use all of it on the population, the global population, to experiment using mRNA and everything like that.
日本でですね、いよいよ発売されることになったThe Naked
The emergency use listing, and it seems that this is the thing that we all really should be focusing on. This one's for Rima Libo. So Dr. Rima wants to know what is going on with the United States getting out of the World Health Organization, but yet what's the influence that we still have with World Health Organization and HHS? And it should be known that in 2007, CBER, which is FDA, became a functional authority. And what they did is the WHO created a term called strict functional authorities. And then they went around and they made two of them. One of them was so it's EMA and FDA. And then what they did is they have the WHO pre-qualification program, and that is the source of the experimentation around the world. And that is really interesting because it came about by 100% United States regulatory authority. So we should be all aware of what's going on. If we have 100% United States regulatory authority being given over to the World Health Organization, and then we find out that that authority was void, which we did because we asked Department of Defense, who was the ones with Operation Warp Speed, right? So we got Department of Defense starting Operation Warp Speed. And then what they did is they skipped a step that they needed by Congress. Otherwise, the experiments were prohibited. They don't have the FOIA, and they're going down because we can't let that happen. They were given rules by Congress for many years. You know, you guys are going out and experimenting on everybody with all these weird things, and they put up those rules. You're prohibited, DOD, unless you have this report. When they didn't have the report, they gave the World Health Organization void authority. So you guys need to understand every vaccine is completely void. And if we don't, as people, hold them to this, we don't care about rule of law then, right? So if we care about rule of law and we care about human rights protections when we have research, then we cannot take the treaty because it brings in the EUL. And we cannot take the IHR because it brings in the EUL. And when they bring in the EUL, we just got testimony 2 weeks ago that when they bring in the EUL, they are able to skip their own national regulations for the protection of human rights in research. So you have all these research protections in your law that say, you know, you can't do this and you can't do that. And when they take, and it's up to the country's sole prerogative, and the countries that take the EUL product, which is most of them, that don't have a strict regulatory authority, they all get the authority. They say it's safe, it's effective, take it. And they have no choice but to believe it's safe, effective. And then they bypass all the safety, they bypass everything. So this is what we're fighting against. And this is why we think it's so important. I'll give the mic back here to Dustin in a second, but what we think we need to do is we need to really back up RFK right now. We've finally got a team saying, hey, Argentina and USA, we're going to lead the way. And so our job, your job, everybody's job, if we want to get out of the WHO right now, is to make a stink. This is got an EUA problem. It's going around our country's laws. I could prove it. And because based on that alone, we can't have the treaty. We can't have the thing. So we've got to have to stick on the real problem here is experimentation
and legality
and going around legalities. That's it. And so, oh, and I do want to say one more thing before I go. The thing that we've been really trying to give you all and working our butts off for was to take these EUL disputes, the vaccine and the PCR test. There was no emergency if you take the PCR. So the PCR fraud, right? So those two products were EUL products, and they are experimental, and they're not proven safe, and they're not proven effective. They don't have to be. So what we did is we took what they call a dispute to the World Health Organization, and those disputes are already for every country. You guys can call us and get our paperwork and take the dispute to your country. You need to. One dispute is for IHR, one dispute is for PCR, EUL, one dispute is for vaccine, EUL, another one is for them censoring us. But you guys have 3 disputes. We got you.
Dustin and Xylee, I'm gonna hold you up to that. I will be contacting you for much more information, but I have to interject here and welcome our founder at Freedom Train International in here to join us to close this last little section out here. And James, I'm sure
Wayne, I promised Emer to give him one more minute. He's got one thing he forgot to say, so
yeah.
do that and then give it to Jim.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry, and thank you all for jumping in. Again, one last thing I forgot, which is crucial, I think, for all of us going forward. Xylee, you mentioned the US and Argentina already pointing the way out. It's fantastic. Yeah. And I think absolutely, and I think we should all follow. I see already in Israel some movements because, for example, in the last vote, Israel abstained, and that is something Israel hardly ever does. Just the fact that Israel is of the small group that abstained was actually quite groundbreaking. But let that alone, what I wanted to emphasize is the responsibility of the USA and Argentina, President Trump and President Milei, and all that will join them to also begin to talk about the day after. So, and I actually believe that if the exit of the USA and Argentina of the WHO would also come with a resounding, we are bringing the band together, we are reforming, regrouping, we're breaking everything up. It's too corrupt, it's too broken to be fixed, but we understand that nations want and have an interest in health across borders, and that should be a good thing, and until it was hijacked by the WHO and globalists. So I think USA and Argentina's Milei and all others who want to join them should already begin to declare working on the next thing after the corner. After we break down this WHO organization, exit, defund, abolish it, and reform and regroup a new and better organization that works actually for health and actually for the people. Thank you very much for the last minute.
I agree. Thank you so much. That's amazing. I just wanted to say that we have already sent out over 200 emails to every single member state and every single health minister with the notice of liability, a notice of intent, and basically of legality, saying that they need to cease and desist these things right away. So we have this, that's why we have this petition on noticeanddemand.org. That's NOTICE and demand, DEMAND.org/petition/exit who. It's all funded through, you know, their funders, Gates and everybody else that are funding the World Health Organization. And it needs to be done. The people need to rise up.
100%. And James, you're going to get your final thoughts here before we let Jim close it up. But I just want to remind folks of the one you brought up something earlier, Buckminster Fuller. And the quote is that you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And that's what all the work that you have done to put this special together for us here today, giving us all the opportunity to meet and come together and have a better understanding, clear some of the noise. That is the path to justice. And we must provide justice at some point, because without justice, there can be no future. We cannot build a future on injustice. So that's the last thing I'm going to say. James, your final thoughts here today before we let Jim close us out.
I'll summarize that in one sentence. I've been saying it for a couple of years. It's time to get out of the who and on with the new.
Amen. Jim, thank you for providing us the vision and the community and the platform to come together like this and do what we do every single week. It's a real special thing, and such a privilege to bring all of these fine people's voices to the world, because we don't have time for the nonsense or the misinformation anymore. It's, you know, come to these people that appear here every week for the information that you can work from.
Well, I echo those sentiments, Wayne, and I want to thank all of the amazing, all of you here in this particular segment, but also in the previous segments. I've been listening backstage, and I've been really impressed with the level, the depth of knowledge, the passion and the courage that each of you have brought to this Freedom Train International live stream. It has been a very special report. We're getting a lot of feedback. We're getting a lot of comments from people. They've really enjoyed what you've done tonight. And I was privileged to open up the show with James Roguski and his guests there. I want to pay tribute to everybody, but I also want to pay tribute to our ambassadors who have hosted these segments, who support the work and the mission that we're doing. Our primary mission is to unite patriots around the world. And, you know, I've been over in Romania recently supporting George Simeon, presidential candidate. I've been in Budapest, Hungary, at CPAC. There are alliances forming. I'm in Ireland. I'm in a hotel room at the moment in Cork on a massive march that was there today with the Irish Patriots. And I'm flying out. I'm heading to another country first thing tomorrow morning, and I'll be reporting from there. And then I'm heading on somewhere else after that. So there's a lot of work, a lot of activity being done. Thank you to all of our ambassadors all around the world. You know, we're really a very powerful, strong team uniting together. And I pay tribute to each and every one of you. And I also want to pay a special thank you to you, James Roguski, for your vision and your incredible ability to cut through the smoke and mirrors and to present the facts in such an eloquent but powerful way. And thank you for being on for the 4 full hours. My goodness, you're going to need to have a good cup of coffee or maybe something a bit stronger to unwind from all of that. But James, absolutely marvelous to have you and your wonderful esteemed colleagues here throughout this last 4 hours. It's been really quite marvelous. To all the people out there, I would say, you know, there is hope. There are fighters here. You've met many of them here tonight. Real freedom fighters, talented experts in their own fields, from Israel, from the Eastern Bloc, from America, from all over the world. And it just goes to show that when we come together, we can build those foundations that we can then build a superstructure on, because unity is strength. And I echo the theme of CPAC Hungary. This is the age of patriots. And every single one of you are true patriots in your own right. Thank you to each and every one of you. Thank you to the thousands of people who are tuning in. We've blown up Twitter again, guys. It's been we're number one again. We usually are when we're running these live stream specials on a Saturday. But it's been a real privilege to meet so many of you. And I hope that I will meet you all personally at some point in the coming days, weeks, months, and even years ahead. There is much work to be done. And I pay tribute to each and every one of you for the work that you are doing. So on that note, I will bring this to a close and say thank you, each and every one of you. Thank you to the thousands of people who are tuning in, listening to this right now. We do appreciate your support. We appreciate your likes, your shares, and for tuning in to hear from the real experts as to what needs to be done, what is happening. And until next time, this is Jim Ferguson on behalf of Freedom to International and the wonderful team that's here tonight, been hosting this. I will bid you all farewell. Good night. Thank you all once again. It's been a privilege. Until next time, we'll speak soon.